I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Camarillo City Council, and we will do the roll call, please.
Councilmember Kildee.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo.
Here.
Councilmember Tennyson.
Present.
Vice Mayor Tremblay. Here. And Mayor Santangelo.
Here. Thank you. The purpose of us opening at this hour is to go into closed session, so I'll ask our city attorney to read the closed session item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. We have 3 items listed on the agenda pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9. There are 3 cases, and they are further described on the agenda face. If there's any reportable action, I will announce that at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock?
Oh, 6 o'clock.
Okay. With that, we will recess into closed session.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Camarillo Board of Library Trustees. Would Councilmember Kildee please lead us in the flag salute?
Sure. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let the record reflect that all council members are present, and we will move to the approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? All right. We can now move to hear any members of the public for public comments. Does anyone wish to address the library board? Okay. Seeing that there's no one, we will close the public comments and move on to the consent calendar. Can I please get a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Okay, please vote. Okay, great, and that passes unanimously. We will now go ahead and move to the discussion items. Do we have a staff member report?
Yes, we
Okay.
do.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good evening, Madam President and trustees of the Camarillo Library Board. I'm John Thomas, Assistant Director of Administrative Services. I'm here this evening standing in for Mandy Nazar, our Library Director, who is out of town and unable to be here tonight, to highlight an upcoming event. As many of you know, next month, the month of March, is Women's History Month. In recognition of this, the Russell Fisher Business Collection will be hosting a discussion panel titled Women at Work on Saturday, March 4th, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. The panel will be comprised of leading working women of the Ventura County area. It is women-created and led, and it highlights our local workforce. Our panelists will be our very own Mayor Susan Santangelo, also our President of the Camarillo Library Board and Councilmember Martinez Bravo. And additional panelists include Alice Foy, owner of the Digital Jane, Kasia Smith, founder and owner of the Ventura County Mom Collective, Rachel Lanin, Director of Farming and Operations of Kimball Ranches, El Hogar, and the moderator for the event will be Zubi Olin from the Economic Development Collaborative. Discussion topics will include how to be a better ally, unpaid labor, and the future of women in the workforce. Registration for this event is required and can be submitted through the library's website at camarilliolibrary.org. Other library events and programming during the month of March are listed in staff's submitted library activity report, and that concludes my update.
Thank you so much for your report. Do any board members have any comments, questions? Okay. Then we can move on to oral communications. Are there any oral communications? Okay, then we would move on to adjourn this meeting of the library board.
Okay, I'd like to call the Camarillo Sanitary District regular meeting to order for February 22nd, and let the record reflect that all directors are present. Approval of the agenda as submitted. We'll move on from that. Public comments. Any comments for the sanitary district? Seeing no one make a mad dash, let's get down to the consent item. It's 2 items on consent.
Move consent.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. No oral communications tonight, and with that, we're adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the successor agency. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Moving on to oral communications. Are there any comments? Seeing none, we will adjourn the meeting of the successor agency. And then I will reopen the meeting of the Camarillo City Council. Are there any changes? Oh, let the record reflect that we are all here. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to oral communications. I'm thrown off because this is the first time that we've changed our order. So oral communication time. I will start this side tonight. Councilmember Tennyson.
Thank you. On February 15th, along with Councilmember Kildee, I attended BRSD. On the 17th, I paid a command visit with RDP 21 to Point Magoo. On February 21st, also with Councilmember Kildee, I attended the Finance and Investment Committee meeting.
All right.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo.
Thank you, Mayor. For meetings attended, I attended the EDC, Economic Development Collaborative meeting on February 16th. And I also wanted to take this time to invite our community to attend the Walk Against Hate in Thousand Oaks on Sunday, February 26th from 1 to 4. You can find out more information at walkagainsthate.org or at ADL.org. I am a member of a board member of the Anti-Defamation League, and we invite our community to take a stance on this date. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Tremblay or Vice Mayor Tremblay, are you ready?
You bet. On meetings attended, February 10th, I had two meetings, committee meetings for Metrolink Board of Directors. I covered for the mayor at the Educator of the Month in Sumas, which was great. February 14th, actually gave out candy and little goodies for Metrolink at the Simi Valley Station for Valentine's Day, where they try to reward all the people who are getting on the trains. There is nothing like trying to hand somebody a piece of candy at 6:30 in the morning, and they look at you like you have three heads saying, "What are you doing? Why are you handing me candy?" But it was an appreciation for all of the folks who use Metrolink. And that was the day that, also the same day that Congresswoman Julia Brownley was here at City Hall. We were present for her presentation of that $4 million check to us for the Las Posas Bridge Replacement Project, which we're very appreciative of her efforts on. On February 15th, I covered again on Educator of the Month at Rancho Campagna, which was fun, and happy to do that. On February 16th, I had a Ventura County Animal Services Commission meeting in Ventura, and then in the afternoon, I covered the Ventura County Fire Department Awards, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Today, I had a drought task force meeting. Yes, we still have a drought task force meeting this morning, and then I had a CASA statewide board meeting this afternoon. I just want to talk a little bit about the drought task force meeting. There's two items I think we need to cover because we have both a short-term issue and a long-term issue. Short-term issue is that certainly our hydrologic cycle, our water cycle has improved an awful lot. In the last several weeks, our water supply conditions have improved. Metropolitan, as you are all aware, has increased its allocation, its historic Table A allocations to 30%, and the expectation is that is going to actually increase later this month and increase again in April. We're thinking that it's probably going to be somewhere around the 50% allocation amount, but we're not sure yet. Callegas has suspended its February 15th. On February 15th, Callegas suspended its emergency water conservation measures and is recommending a downgrade to Stage 2 conditions, which in English mean going to 2 days a week watering rather than one. And it's recommending that local water purveyors, including the city of Camarillo, maintain water demand reduction measures that are consistent with our water shortage contingency plan without exceeding that 2 days per week watering restriction. Anyway, there's more to come to the council next month, and that'll come in front of us next month. The more long-term issue, you all recall the equitable supply reliability issue for Metropolitan Water District, a huge issue for all of the state water project dependent areas. In August, Metropolitan, you recall, had a call to action, and it specifically directed management of Metropolitan to bring a portfolio of specific projects and programs, including conveyance infrastructure improvements, for board approval in February of this year. That didn't happen. Management did not bring that slate of projects, and so there was a robust discussion on that topic this morning at the Drought Task Force, and I think there is an expectation My understanding anecdotally is that there's an expectation that Metropolitan Management will be bringing something to the Metropolitan Board next month. But in the meantime, there are discussions about a potential joint letter from local water purveyors within Cayugas addressing Metropolitan Management's failure to bring timely to its Board of Directors a list of projects and their lack of communication. And I would just add, the reason this is a long-term issue is these are projects that will be several years in the making, but they're otherwise very important. They're very significant because the issues that affected, the drought emergency measures that affected us were shared by, our 70,000 in our city, were shared by 6 million people within Metropolitan Water District, or approximately 30% of Metropolitan's water customers were impacted by these restrictions over the last several months because we are in a state water project dependent area. So the conveyance infrastructure issues are serious, they're long-term, and they need a long-term resolution. So we'll be looking more at that in the months to come. And that was a really long report. So thank you for your patience.
Councilmember Kilby.
Thank you. Meetings attended February 16th, the VRSD meeting along with Mr. Tennyson. February 21st, the Finance and Investment Committee meeting. And we're going to have some real inclement weather potentially coming our way, a lot of wind and everything. So hopefully the street crew will be ready for this. I'm sure they will be, like they always are. So whatever you can do to batten down the hatch or whatever it is, just take the necessary appropriations that we all need to do. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Just wanted to give an additional, I was really privileged to attend the Ventura County Fire Department Awards on February 16th, as I mentioned, and two of our sheriff's deputies in Camarillo, Detective Noe Magana and Deputy Martin Nunez, both received life-saving awards during this presentation, and Deputy Nunez literally saved two people's lives, and Detective Magana was involved in that terrible accident over at Camarillo Outlets where a 14-year-old boy was tragically run over by a vehicle and is still alive. But anyway, they clearly deserve the life-saving award medals, and they clearly deserve all the recognition we can give them. So it was a pleasure to be there. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Okay, for meetings attended on February 15th, I attended LAFCO. Also on February 15th, Clean Power Alliance. February 22nd, the Clean Power Alliance Finance Committee, that was earlier today. And on the 14th, I was also here for the presentation from Congresswoman Julia Brownley. And that's all I have. Okay, so that brings us to the consent calendar.
I'll move the approval of all the items on consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. I probably should have made my comment before, but I just wanted to make a comment about our council goals. If anybody from the public is just looking through the agenda and looking at the red line, it doesn't look like we did much to the council goals. But we actually did, and I just want to say that I thought we had a really productive meeting. And sometimes it's not about how many words you change or how many words you rearrange or what you change to the goals. Sometimes the goals that we have already in existence.
Mayor, I think that item's actually a little later in the agenda. It's not on consent.
You know what?
Sorry.
You're right.
Okay,
Thank
sorry.
you. I apologize. Okay. I was just warming up. So that was a preview to my next comment. Okay, so that brings us down to discussion items, and we're at item Q, which is the single audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. And we have Mark Uribe.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Mark Uribe, Finance Director for the city, and wanted to just talk a little bit about this item tonight. It's the annual single audit report for fiscal year ended 2021-22, and it's a receive and file recommendation, action. And if you recall, the annual audit was a receive and file back in December. Now, the single audit differs from the annual audit in that the single audit focuses on federal grant awards. So any city that receives federal grant funding expends federal grant funding. I got to make that clear. It's not just being awarded the federal grants, it's actually spending the federal grant monies. Over $750,000 is subject to a single audit each year. So that's what this is. It's the same audit firm, Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, who did our financial audit, also does the single audit. And they selected 3 major programs to audit in fiscal year '22 based on the amount of expenditures. Those 3 programs were under CDBG, and CDBG had 2 categories, the normal CDBG under HUD, and then CDBG also had some CARES Act money through the coronavirus federal funding. And then second one was the USBR grant that was related to the desalter, and the third one was the American Rescue Plan Act, or the ARPA funds. All 3 of those were reviewed by the auditors as major programs. Now, the auditor identified one instance of noncompliance under the CDBG program. Under the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act, or FFATA, a prime recipient, or the city in this case, is required to file a FFATA report when awarding a subgrant greater than or equal to $30,000. And during the fiscal year 2022, we had 3 of those that were the Lutheran Social Services, the Camarillo Healthcare District, and the PVRPD Food Program that each received over $30,000. And there is a requirement to file that report on behalf of each of those subawards. And that report was not filed. The city was not aware of that requirement and is now working with the city's CDBG consultant to file that required report moving forward, if required. And also adding to the reporting requirement in CDBG, the Community Development Department's grant procedures, and that's per the auditor's recommendation that's found on page 10 of the audit report. So now, this single audit report normally comes through as a consent calendar item, but because of the finding, I wanted to allow council a chance to understand what the finding was and be able to ask any questions related to that. So that completes the brief description and report, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Yes.
I just have one question, Mark. With the noted significant deficiency, is the city facing any penalty for not filing timely?
No, that's a good question. We have not been able to find any consequence of not filing. It's a report that was enacted in 2010, and this was the first time it came up during an audit.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. I know we're all human beings and we will make errors, so I appreciate the fact that, you know, as I tell my kids, own it and fix it. You owned it, you fixed it, and you were moving forward. So thank you.
Okay.
I'll move to receive and file.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, Mark. That brings us to item R. Oh, good. I can get back on track now. So item R is to review and adopt the council goals and objectives for fiscal year 2023 and 24.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, members of the City Council. On February 1st, the City Council conducted the strategic planning session at the Camarillo Library. Staff provided, it was an opportunity for staff to provide a report, an oral report on the current progress of fiscal year 2022-23 council goals and objectives, and we received input from City Council. So as Madam Mayor was referencing earlier, this was a very comprehensive process that we go through, beginning with the current progress. City Council's discussion then pivoted to fiscal year 2023 and 24 goals and objectives, and your collaborative discussion and direction is provided in the agenda report. For tonight's item, we are looking for your adoption of fiscal year 2023-24 City Council goals and objectives. We discussed the roadmap and how the strategic planning session is essential and the fundamental component to the planning of staff work plans and the allocation of resources necessary, whether in funding or staff resources, to accomplish these efforts. Concurrently, and following the adoption of the goals and objectives, staff evaluates the department work plans to ensure that current work and future action strategies and projects, programs, and activities are aligned with City Council's goals and objectives. New action strategies may need to be vetted and are prioritized by City Council for resource prioritization and will undergo that process as directed by the City Manager. And finally, performance measures are reported to the City Council and the public through progress updates in November and February, through budget performance measures, and through various means such as messaging and updates on reports on the city's website, city e-news, OpenGov, and press releases. And these are just some forms of communication that we provide for the community. City Council had a significant discussion, shared several comments with staff, and provided input during the session. There are several areas of discussion, and here's are just some examples. I won't read through the entire list, but inclusivity was one of them, and ensuring the mission statement is more clear, that the City Council and staff are achieving the roles and responsibilities through the lens of inclusion of all. Continue working on Healthy Camarillo is another example, and as a result, creation of an ad hoc committee to help guide staff through its progress this year. Promote and encourage sustainability through projects throughout the city and within city operations, and you'll have that revision noted in your report. Continue to engage, communicate, and educate the community in various ways. So continue to expand it and look for various ways of communications and engagement as appropriate for the information that's being provided to our community and for those who we are providing it to. The written report and attachments outline the revisions, additions, and deletions to the current goals and objectives for your review and approval. And I did list those, and so I'll just go through these very briefly. The mission statement, for example, includes the words "for all," dedicated to providing effective and efficient municipal services that promote a high quality of life, economic vitality, and a safe environment for all. Presented before you are the revisions from the agenda report, as I mentioned to you, for the goal of California State University Channel Islands, and one of the objectives would be revised of adding research opportunities to it. Under the goal of environment resource management, promote renewable energy generation and infrastructure projects in the city. So the words "in the city" are included in that objective. Under the goal of employee relations, it is the goal of the City Council to maintain an optimum work environment. And that phrase is included in there, replacing an earlier words to expand and give the city manager an opportunity to look for different, to continue to offer different ways in which creating that optimum environment. Also, a new objective under that goal: to promote and encourage sustainable best practices in the workplace consistent with the Sustainability Master Plan and incentivize employees for personal work-related sustainability practices. Now, this was an objective that, the City Council discussed, and you hadn't quite formed an objective at the meeting, and we told you we'd bring back some language. So this is the language that you're seeing for the first time. And then in deletions, under the goal community enrichment, it was discussed to delete the objective of continuing to work with Kidstream for the use of the old library site, as this has now been completed and the property has been transferred to Kidstream. Staff will continue to work on the project with Kidstream, but in terms of the reuse of the old library site is now under their responsibility, as this has been transferred to them by the City Council. Action strategy, this action strategy is recommended to be deleted, as the city staff in this current year has been working on and did meet with a committee to create a pilot project for an art mural program, and that would be coming to the City Council at a later time, but that has now been completed. So again, just that's in summary. You have the report before you. I'm available for any council's questions, comments, and again, the recommendations for your adoption of fiscal year 23-24 council goals and objectives.
Questions? Comments? I think I had a comment, but I already made it, so.
I'll make a quick comment. Kind of follow up a little bit what, excuse me, the mayor said. We worked, it was a real working group this time, and there was a lot of, issues that had been addressed, and there were new issues that needed to be addressed and were. I had specifically brought up a little bit about employee relations and the fact that it's very difficult to recruit new employees here, and the employees that we have got to be nimble and highly motivated and able to deal with what I would consider the complexities of the kind of computer and kind of cyber and security and a lot of issues with the technical, which our employees are. And we're going to go forward with making sure that our employees are the highest trained possibly in the county. And I know all the council members agreed with this. I know our employees do as well, and our management staff. I want to give them a shout out here by understanding that kind of situation that we find ourselves in, and really working to continue to make the Camarillo the great city that a lot of us have benefited for many years with, and a lot of it has to do with our outstanding employees here, and I want to thank all of them for being employed with our city and loving it as much as the rest of us do, not only up here on the dais, but in our community too. So again, it was a really robust, as I use an attorney's phrase, discussion on so many issues here, but I think where we land, we have a really good goals and objectives for this year. So those are my comments.
Any other comments?
I just have a comment. This was my first time attending a goals and objectives meeting, obviously, as a council member. And I just want to say that I really appreciate the diversity in thought. I appreciate every single one of my council members for your input and also your patience. And thank you also to Carmen, our assistant manager, who really helped me answer some of my 1 million questions that I had prior as well. And I'm just very happy to be here, and I really am enjoying people keep asking, like, how do you like city council? And it's like, everyone has been so kind and so supportive. And I know while we all may have our differences, at the end of the day, we're coming together to serve our community and to do what is right. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No more comments. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the staff recommended motion.
I'll second.
I'll
the
second.
motion. I'll withdraw.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. That brings us to item S, the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency proposed replenishment fees. And I believe that our city manager is going to take this one.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As identified in the staff report, the item before you tonight for discussion is with regards to development and implementation of a groundwater replenishment fee by the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, of which Camarillo is a member. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act authorizes the imposition of fees on groundwater extraction to fund projects to meet sustainability goals for basins which have adopted sustainability plans. Tonight, I will shortly defer to Vice Mayor Tremblay, who serves as an alternate on the Fox Canyon GMA. But also, I'd like to introduce and/or acknowledge a couple guests here in the audience. That'd be Vice President Terry Foreman with the Camarillo Water District, along with General Manager Tony Stafford. I'd also think it would be appropriate to allow them to come up and share their thoughts on this issue after Councilmember Vice Mayor Tremblay has had a chance to share with us his thoughts as well. Based on your discussion and direction, staff would recommend that we prepare a joint letter along with Cameron Russell Water District to send to the Fox Canyon GMA on your thoughts. So at this point, I'd recommend deferring to Vice Mayor Tremblay. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I would like to spend just a couple of minutes sort of setting the stage for why this has come to us, and also indicating really what the specific issue is. So the staff report speaks for itself. The bottom line is that our city of Camarillo has groundwater wells within the Pleasant Valley Basin and within the jurisdiction of the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency. And so does Camarillo Water District. For these purposes, we'll call them our sister water agency supplying water on the east side of the city. The GMA board later this year is going to consider the potential institution of what's called a groundwater replenishment fee. And they're statutorily authorized to enact it. They have to go through a process. But it would be to fund projects, which would be either, for example, purchase of imported state water or improvements in water infrastructure to meet the sustainability goals of the groundwater basins that are set forth in the groundwater sustainability plans. And in English, basically, it's to remedy the overdrafting that has gone on in the groundwater basins and make the groundwater extractions from the basins more sustainable. Okay. If the GMA adopts those fees, they have to be consistent with law, including the constitutional requirements of Proposition 218. And the requirements in Proposition 218 are both procedural and substantive, but I want to talk just for a minute about some of the substantive requirements. And in Article 13 of the state constitution, Article 13, Section 6, anyway, without getting too far down in the weeds, there are several substantive requirements that a fee has to meet. And it includes a nexus requirement, and it's important to keep that in mind here. In other words, the amount of the fee imposed on the parcel or on the person, in this case, the city, as owning that parcel with the well as an incident of property ownership, cannot exceed the proportional cost of service to the parcel. The flip side of that is the benefit side. So the nexus issue is important. So the GMA is working on a nexus study. They're working on what will the GMA staff recommend in terms of a replenishment fee. They have a consultant working on it, and it involves, among other things, designing a rate structure that's fair, right, for all concerned. Well, it's complicated. Not the least of which, there are a host of technical issues, including the basin's hydrogeology and how the basins work, and how benefits are quantified, and how they're distributed if replenishment water supplies come in. And remember that the fee that the GMA is talking about is with respect, and I'll come back to this in a minute, is with respect, it would be a uniform fee with respect both to the Oxnard subbasin, it's called the Oxnard subbasin in the groundwater sustainability plan, and the Pleasant Valley Basin where we have our facilities. So the schedule for this is in June, at least the GMA has been talking about the schedule for this being in June, having the GMA board consider a resolution of intention regarding an order, regarding rates, and then in August, conduct a hearing and adopt a replenishment fee. Personally, I think that's very ambitious. I would expect that it's not going to be accomplished that fast because of the technical and complicated nature of the fee. Okay, so that's the stage, but here's the issue. To date, the discussion by the GMA has focused on a fee to offset the costs associated with introducing replenishment water into the Oxnard Pleasant Valley basins, as the staff report indicates. And it would be a uniform fee for all all pumpers, all groundwater pumpers within the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley basins, and a uniform fee regardless of where the pumping would occur, whether it would occur in the Oxnard subbasin or in the Pleasant Valley Basin where we have our groundwater facilities. And the concern regarding a uniform fee that covers both basins is that the benefits of replenishment water, for example, imported water or some other form of water, will likely not be realized among all Oxnard Pleasant Valley pumpers. It won't be realized equally among them. And it really depends on how the replenishment occurs and where it occurs. So let me try and state it differently. A uniform fee potentially could be inequitable and potentially violative of Proposition 218. Remember that nexus requirement. So the thought is that the GMA should be considering differential, not uniform rates. Putting it a different way, considering separate replenishment fees for each basin. Have a separate replenishment fee for the Oxnard subbasin and a separate replenishment fee for the Pleasant Valley Basin because, among other things, the overdraft situation is quite different in each basin. The Oxnard subbasin is severely overdrafted, and it has a far different situation, for example, than the Pleasant Valley Basin. So why is that? Well, the data suggests that the pumping in the Oxnard subbasin is contributing significantly to overdraft, much more significantly to overdraft than the wells in the Pleasant Valley Basin. And so we think groundwater pumpers in the Oxnard subbasin should provide a greater proportionate share of the burden to solve the overdraft because of the condition of the Oxnard basin. But if you have a uniform fee and everybody is treated equally, you don't realize that sense of proportionality that we think is appropriate. And solving the overdraft is you either decrease your pumping or you have replenishment. And then there are other factors that are involved here, the flow between the basins, so that there's no disproportionate burden. The basins are hydrogeologically connected, but they are considered to be single units by DWR. So the whole issue here is a uniform fee for both the Oxnard and the Pleasant Valley basins, and hence this staff report. And it's, my view, I know, that the city of Camarillo and Camarosa Water District share these same concerns, and their concerns are in alignment regarding this issue. And so the recommendation was for a joint letter to have the council agree to a recommendation for a joint letter to Fox Canyon GMA from both the city of Camarillo and the Camarosa Water District, indicating this concern that's on the record right now that can be considered by GMA and its consultants while this rate structure is being designed. So, I noticed, and they've already been introduced, present tonight are two folks who are quite expert at this. One is Tony Stafford, who's the general manager for Camarosa Water District, and the other is Terry Foreman, who is a resident of our city. He's on the board of directors for Camarosa, and Terry also happens to be a preeminent hydrogeologist who understands these issues a lot better than me, former vice president of CH2M Hill, by the way. So I really want to credit Mr. Foreman for thinking about this issue and bringing it to our attention. So we thought it would be good for us to discuss this tonight and see whether or not it would be appropriate from the council standpoint to have a joint letter between the city and Camarosa. And I guess with that, Madam Mayor, if it's okay, I guess we might invite either Mr. Stafford or Mr. Foreman to speak on this issue if they so desire, and I haven't completely gone down in the weeds. If there's something they want to respond to or gone astray.
Mayor, council members, my name has been introduced as Terry Foreman. That's who I am. And I can't really say a whole lot more than what Councilmember Tremblay just articulated. He did a great job of summarizing the issue and the concerns that we have, and we would really appreciate doing a joint letter together to express those concerns to the GMA, and in particular to ask them to have an open stakeholder process where we can provide review and input to the development of this fee as they move along, so that they hear our concerns, they take them into account, and hopefully come out with a fee that everyone can agree is equitable and appropriate for all the parties in both basins. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions if there are any follow-up questions.
Yes, Councilmember Kilday.
Thanks for being here, Mr. Foreman. I just have a question, and I support this. I have a question about how we want to be part of this discussion and how a fee will be set. My assumption is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, if we want to have a non-uniformed price for each pumper in each basin, wouldn't there have to be some sort of a technical report that explains why this is? In other words, I'm thinking, okay, if one basin is overdrafted, then it would be natural for me to think, well, if they want to pump more water out of an overdrafted basin, that it's going to cost them more because the water perhaps could be deeper than it is. So, and that's just kind of a layman's thought here. Would part of the discussion and part of the report have some background as to why that there should be a non-uniformed pricing structure? I don't know if I articulated myself very well, but
No, I think you said it very appropriately, and as Councilmember Tremblay indicated, there's a nexus study that's required to be done to show there's a connection between what it's going to cost to address this issue and the benefit to each of the parties in the basin. And so that cost has to be appropriate to the benefit. And that's what we want to make sure as this process moves forward, that we can see how they develop their cost and see that we get the appropriate benefit for that cost. That's the nexus that we're looking for.
and that will be hopefully part of that future.
That's what they're
future discussion.
supposedly
Yeah.
working on right now. And they did a kind of a straw man proposal back in August, which kind of prompted this whole discussion, is as Councilmember Tremblay said, they were talking about a uniform fee for the OPV basin, which is the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley basins combined together. And at that time, they were talking about it being a uniform fee across the basins. And we said, wait a minute, that may not make sense. So we'd like to have more discussion of that. And we have talked to staff, and they're open to these discussions and have acknowledged that these are key issues that do need to be addressed. But given their schedule of June and then August, we think that's a pretty short time frame, and I agree that that's very ambitious and probably not likely to happen. But we want to start the process of being involved as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I might just add that the real bottom line here, the take-home message is, depending on the significance of a fee that is ultimately enacted, that hits our ratepayers and hits Camarosa's ratepayers directly in the pocketbook. And that's why we have to pay attention to this. So it is a materially significant issue from a financial standpoint.
Might I add that we want to make sure they also, in doing this, consider the beneficial projects that are beneficial to the basin, such as the City of Camarillo's desalter project. You're not charging them anything for removing poor quality water and protecting the water quality of the basin. That should be factored in to the analysis, as well as Camarosa's project with the Conejo Creek project, where we provide water on the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley basins that limits the pumping that they have to do. So we want to make sure those items are incorporated into this analysis as well.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Appreciate you being here. Okay, comments? Oh, ready for a motion?
Madam Mayor, I would be happy to make the staff recommended motion, which is to direct staff to send a joint letter with Camarosa Water District to the Fox Canyon GMA, addressing the development and potential impacts of the proposed groundwater replenishment fees.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. So that brings us to the end of our 5 o'clock session. So we will take a short recess and come back at 6 o'clock for public comment. Okay, I'd like to reconvene this meeting of the Camarillo City Council, and it is now time for public comment. I will read the speakers in the order that I've received the cards, and the first speaker is Sabrina Tipton. And Sabrina, you'll have 3 minutes, and all the speakers will have 3 minutes for your comments. When the clock has 1 minute left, you'll hear a beep, and it'll turn to yellow, but you can keep talking until the end.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. All right, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members and City Attorney and City Manager. Okay, I just want to make sure I have everybody. My name is Sabrina Tipton. I'm a Public Information Officer with the U.S. Business Administration, Office of Disaster Resilience and Recovery. I'm coordinating SBA support for those affected by the storms that occurred December 27th, 2022 through January 31st, 2023. When a county becomes a declared county, such as Ventura County, the support from the SBA extends to homeowners and renters, as well as businesses. The SBA offers low-interest disaster loans to businesses, homeowners, and renters. Businesses may borrow up to $2 million to repair and replace damaged property and for working capital needs that were caused by the disaster, as well as homeowners may borrow up to $200,000 to repair or replace their primary residence, and homeowners and renters may borrow up to $40,000 to replace personal property such as appliances, furniture, clothing, and vehicles. The interest rates can be as low as 2.3 for homeowners and renters and 3.3 for businesses, with terms up to 30 years. Loan amounts and terms are set by the SBA and are based on each applicant's financial condition. We also offer mitigation. That would be the second flyer that you're seeing behind the green fact sheet. And that's for any sort of disaster loan borrower that's eligible, and they may choose to receive expanded funding to help mitigate their home or business. The application deadline for physical damage is March 16th, 2023. That also matches FEMA with what they're asking for. And the economic injury is October 16th. That's a little bit longer so businesses can see if they have any economic loss due to those storms. And because this is a presidential declaration for the state of California, we're partnered with FEMA. And the first step for applicants is they need to apply online. The website for that is disasterassistance.gov. For Spanish speakers, it's disasterassistance.gov/ES. And you will receive a FEMA number that's, unique to your application. And then after that, FEMA will normally move applicants towards resources that are there. It can be state, it can be county, it can also then be the SBA. And then we ask folks that are directed towards us to at least look at filling out an application. There's no fee, there's no obligation, just look at what your options are. And then we have a customer number. It's 1-800, it's at the bottom of that fact sheet, 659-2955, and the FEMA number is 1-800-621-3362. Right now, we do have an in-person location here in Ventura County. We moved from the fairgrounds. We're now at the Ventura County building, where probation is, right on the first floor. That just happens to be the building. And then Santa Barbara County has one at Allen Hancock. And then San Luis Obispo County has one at the San Luis Obispo Library. Those are the three local centers. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, Councilman.
Yeah. The application deadlines, are those like super firm?
Well, we hope that they could be extended, but right now, no. Right now, we have to keep to that, and we really encourage folks to make those deadlines, for sure the March one. If there's any sort of circumstances that prevented somebody from being able to meet that application deadline, they can submit the reasons. We don't want to deter anybody that comes afterwards, and then that can be evaluated per applicant. So yes, if there's for some reason, yeah, people can provide that.
Just thinking, potentially we have some inclement weather coming, and so.
Yeah, well, right now it won't expand because there has been an end date. I know for a while you were all seeing December 27th, 2022 and continuing. They did stop it at January 31st, 2023. So if there were to be continual issues from the upcoming weather that you're speaking about, that would be another move that would need to be taken by the counties as well as your governor. But I think you're aware of that. But just know I know there wasn't a deadline. Some people put it at January 31st. Okay. So, okay, and I would just say just keep being in touch. You seem to be a pretty active group, You mentioned a couple, I met Congressman Brownlee, she's great. I was just at the EDC, so. And then what I wanted to also do after this, I want to follow up. There's a press release that the USDA provided to us, and we are allowed, the SBA is allowed to provide that, because it has been a very unique disaster in that you have agricultural, you have ranching, you have cattle, you have orchards. And so there's a lot of active links on there that can provide people to different resources, and I will follow up with an email to you on that, just as well. And you got one from me a little while ago, but I'll follow up with that. And then I did find out when I went into your Ventura County, there is a table right now for EDD. There's unemployment for sole props, and that's not something that is normally a program that's available. It's normally W-2s. I'll follow up on that with you, and there's also a supplemental that the state of California has. So I'll provide those 3 flyers to you if you have any way of getting that out there to your community and your constituents, and then posting it on your website, your social media, that'd be great. And I'll make sure the clerk's included. Are there any other questions? Okay. Be safe with the weather, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Tipton. Okay, Juliana Boone.
Good evening. My name is Juliana Boone, and I'm the president of the Stop Drowning Now Club at Newbury Park High School, and I'm 15 years old. And I'm going to start you off with some quick facts. In 2016, an 18-month-old visiting his grandparents in Westlake Village died after going through a dog door and drowning in his family pool. In 2019, a 4-year-old girl was with her mother in the backyard of their North Ranch home when her mother unfortunately lost focus. The little girl drowned without a sound. The CDC lists drowning as the number 5 cause of death in the United States and the number 1 cause of death in children under age 4. On average, in the United States alone, 10 people die from accidental drowning per day. We all know somebody that has lost a loved one to drowning, but this tragedy is 100% preventable. Along with 5 other Stop Drowning Now chapters in our area, we have raised money and awareness for drowning prevention education. We have presented educational drowning puppet shows in preschools, elementary schools, and we have participated in many city events. In our community, we have reached over 600 students thus far. We are asking that the City of Camarillo partners with us and helps promote the importance of water safety and drowning prevention. The City of Camarillo can help educate our community about drowning risks by becoming a city partner in our ideal No Drown town. For a $2,375 contribution per year for 3 years, the Stop Drowning Now organization will help the city host a water safety challenge each year and provide a Stop Drowning Now drowning educational booth at city events staffed by the Stop Drowning Now High School Club volunteers. In addition, the Stop Drowning Now organization will provide co-branded swag kits, an Easy Up, and tablecloth at community events showing our city's commitment to drowning education as we work together to educate to eliminate drowning. In Orange County, there is an active county drowning prevention task force, and they were able to enact a citywide water safety day. Seal Beach, Irvine, and Laguna Hills have established No Drown towns, and the Stop Drowning Now Club is working with drowning prevention task force in the Inland Empire. It would be amazing to be able to do something like this with Ventura County, and the City of Camarillo leading the way would be amazing. With all the negativity in this world these days, this is something positive we can do for our community and becoming a leader in drowning prevention. Let's be proactive and prevent any future drownings in our community. Please strongly consider the budgeting of a No Drown town in the city budget. We would welcome the opportunity to provide a full presentation at a future meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Boone.
Thank you.
I have a question. What was the name of your organization?
The Stop Drowning Now organization.
Drop down. Okay. Is that a 501c3? Is it a nonprofit or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Michelle Sevilla.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, as well as City Manager and City Attorney. My name is Michelle Sevilla. I am the Director of Communications for Assemblymember Steve Bennett. I am a recent transplant to the City of Camarillo after having lived in our neighboring Somis for a few years during the pandemic. And I wanted to share that Assemblyman Steve Bennett is hosting a community-based coffee in Old Town Camarillo, specifically in Tree Lounge Coffee for Saturday, March 18th from 10 to 11:30. You all will be receiving direct emails from myself. I also left a few of my business cards with you all. We're looking for a new office space, or we have a new office space, so my email is the most direct way of contacting me. And I, again, live in the city of Camarillo, so I cover this area as well as my former area of Somis. So I look forward to hopefully seeing all of you there. And if there's anything that you need from our office or anything statewide that we could help with in terms of the city, I look forward to staying in touch with all of you and helping in the way that I can for City of Camarillo interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sevilla. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Next is Patricia McGarry.
I'll try to be quicker this time. I'd like to start off where I left last time and say thank you, Martita, for reaching out to us in our community. I hope that we can help each other as well as the community at large. I told you briefly about the last time it was a 38-degree night. From what I hear, it's supposed to be down to 36 tonight. I tried calling about hotel vouchers. There used to be a program here in Camarillo that when it got below 45 degrees, that there were hotel vouchers available to the homeless to get out of the cold. And what I got told by the homeless liaison officers was that there was no more funding. I decided to go onto the city website and look at the total fund balances from last year. In January 2022, we were at $318,533,924. In December of 2022, we were at $341,089,622, an increase of $22,555,698. Now, I know a portion of that goes into savings. Why then can this money not be used in saving lives? Last city council meeting, Commander Tennyson stated that Jason Havelka had housed 33 people. I would like to see proof of this. In an Acorn article, Mayor Santangelo presumed there were about 50 homeless people according to the count and what she saw and everything. So if 33 people were housed, there should have only been about 17 more people. And I'm aware that, again, homelessness is increasing in this area, but I feel like there should be some transparency in whether or not we are being told real numbers. We were speaking to Commander Tennyson today, and we had become aware of things such where we had done wrong. My husband had used vile language on a few of the videos that we had taken of the police officer interactions. And we came back with, what about actions? Think about the actions speak louder than words. And the actions taken upon our community are far worse than the words that we are dishing out. We are doing nothing to harm anyone, yet we are being administratively reprimanded for being well below the poverty line. Today when I woke up, I had an alert on my phone that the Vehicle Registration Board took all the money from my account and took our account to zero. And that is how we are being treated because we have no address and we have so little money. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGarry. Belarus McGarry.
Today, the cops came with 2 SUVs and 2 pickup trucks to hand out traffic tickets and refused to give tickets to cars with stickers for July last year in 2018. You guys are doing dirty work and getting scared because of it. What is the meaning of this? These tickets are a waste of paper. You guys could just come and tell us what you want, and we'll help you and move or will not. First, my dad got arrested for making a cop mad and almost got arrested for walking. This is so uncalled for. We keep telling them, and then they steal our car. That's why I work and struggle so hard depending on Christ's mighty power that works within me. Good night, Council.
Thank you, Belarus. Alusha McGarry?
Good evening, council members. Apparently it was not enough for the cops to take our vans because because this morning the government took every last penny from our bank account. Imagine you put some money in your bank account and the next day you go to the bank to get your money and there's not 1 penny in your bank account. Not long after we got our money stolen, 5 cops came to give 72-hour remove notices. You should know by now that it's a waste of time to send officers to write up tickets, for I find myself again telling you guys we will never move for the government. There are 2 cars out there that have the wrong stickers. One has a sticker for July of last year, and the other one has the sticker for 2018. And we got our van stolen for having the wrong sticker. And the cops refused to even give the 2 cars tickets because they have houses. And one of the cops threatened to arrest Dad for walking. He said, "Take 1 more step and I'll arrest you." Hey, Tennyson, you claim to be a Christian. Haven't you ever been to Sunday school? Haven't you ever learned the golden rule? It doesn't seem like you're treating us how you want to be treated. Besides, you don't even come and do police dirty work yourself. You send other people to do it. What is said in the dark, proclaim the light. You all seem to like being in the dark, but I'm here to shed light on matters. The wicked flees, no none pursue. But the just, like a lion, are confident. Good night, council members.
Thank you, Alusha. Okay, that concludes public comments, unless there's anybody else that would like to speak to the council. Okay. At this point, I'm going to ask the city attorney to give us a closed session report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. The council went into closed session this evening on 3 items, and there is no reportable action to report from the closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our agenda, and so we will close this meeting. Thank you. We're adjourned.